I unmasked my sister-in-law's betrayal, her illicit affair with her husband, after she sabotaged my wedding, a revelation that unraveled long-buried secrets and fractured our entire family. I, a 38-year-old man, wed my wife Amanda, a 32-year-old woman, 3 years ago. Amanda comes from a very close-knit family. Her parents are still together and profoundly in love, and she has 2 sisters, both older. The eldest is Stacy, aged 38, who is blessed with twin boys, both 8 years old. Her husband Jeremy, a 41-year-old man, is the sole breadwinner for their family, while Stacy, as a dedicated stay-at-home mom, handles most of the childcare and over half the household chores. The other sister, Vivian, aged 35, is a brilliant artist with a wonderfully eccentric flair. She has always marched to the beat of her own drum and is set to marry by year's end. Ever since I began dating Amanda, the intricate and unconventional dynamics of her family have always struck me as peculiar. I first encountered Amanda 5 years back at a lively party where a mutual friend brought us together. We had a blast that very evening, exchanged numbers, but nothing more transpired that night. Then, a few weeks later, the same friend whisked us off on a double date. Only then did we discover an unexpectedly vast array of shared interests, which hinted that perhaps we could really take this forward. During our first exclusive date, I felt an inexplicable disquiet as we sat down for dinner at a classy restaurant. In the softly lit ambience, I noticed a peculiar woman clad in sunglasses and a cap, her intense gaze fixed on us from across the room. The sight sent an icy thrill through my veins, and I couldn't shake the fear that she might be a deranged madam or even a stealthy serial killer on the prowl. I nudged Amanda's attention toward the strange figure and suggested we relocate to another venue, convinced that this woman posed a genuine threat. Amanda just laughed it off, dismissing my worries as mere overthinking and assuring me that she felt entirely at ease. Despite my reluctance to remain in that unsettling atmosphere or force her into moving elsewhere, we sat down for dinner. A few minutes into our meal, I observed the mysterious woman quietly leaving, which eased my apprehensions even further. As you may have pieced together, that enigmatic figure turned out to be her own sister, Stacy. Years later, after Amanda and I had become engaged, I discovered the full story. It turned out that the 3 sisters found it all rather amusing, except for Vivian, who, in my eyes, had always been the most rational and stable among them, even though their relationship exuded a strange, almost unhealthy codependency. I get that, as siblings, their tight-knit bond might spring from a nurturing family environment, a contrast to my own background, where I was raised in a fractured, mixed household, estranged from nearly everyone save for my unexpectedly kind stepmother. The rest of my family was marred by toxicity and manipulation, and it is solely thanks to my stepmom that I remain here today. But putting that aside, the essential truth is that Stacy, Vivian, and Amanda are inseparably close. They divulge every intimate detail of their lives, including every facet of mine. I told Amanda time and again that I couldn't stand how she casually divulged every personal issue to her sisters, yet she dismissed my concerns with a laugh, insisting that such openness was the very essence of sibling bonds, a perspective I supposedly wouldn't grasp, being an only child. Although I felt a persistent unease, I eventually conceded that it wasn't my right to critique and slowly learned to embrace her family's peculiar ways. Yet on my wedding day, a single incident unraveled any remaining respect I had for Stacy. Stacy had eloped with her boyfriend 10 years ago, fulfilling her wild desire at that time, but gradually, within 5 short years of marriage, she came to realize that her wedding had failed to capture her ideal vision and longed to recreate the entire ceremony with a lavish guest list and a splendid venue. Her husband, however, flatly refused. He insisted he would not squander their hard-earned money on such extravagant whims, arguing that as responsible parents they must prioritize saving for the boys. This uncompromising stance left Stacy furious, leading her and her sisters to band together and confront Jeremy, labeling him as callously cruel and downright insensitive. At the time, roughly 1 year into our relationship, I earnestly attempted to gently explain that Jeremy's argument made perfect sense. As devoted parents, if our financial situation couldn't bear the weight of extravagant, unnecessary expenses, our resources must first secure the future of our boys. Regrettably, Amanda chose not to listen. Jeremy, ever the tough guy, simply shrugged off the sisters' relentless pressure, responding with a firm tough and refusing to budge. Stacy was in utter misery, spreading discontent to everyone around her, yet Jeremy remained unyielding. Eventually, after a few months, she quietly abandoned the idea. I proposed to Amanda, and as we meticulously planned our wedding, a process that, unlike many couples, only deepened our connection, we operated as a seamless team, making every decision together and moving in perfect harmony. So, naturally, it came as an utter shock to me when, on our wedding day, I witnessed Stacy arriving clad in white as well. I braced myself for Amanda's indignation, yet instead, she radiated pure happiness, grinning from ear to ear during her bride's speech. She explained, with heartfelt sincerity, that she wished to share her once-in-a-lifetime day with her sister, a sister who had been denied the opportunity to experience the wedding of her dreams. Jeremy emitted an exasperated sigh so profound that it might have been heard even in distant Cuba. He was utterly fed up with Stacy's antics. I, however, felt utterly blindsided after the ceremony, so I confronted Amanda, demanding to know why she had never bothered to alert me about her plans. In response, she casually explained that she had no qualms about her sister donning white, and therefore, she simply could not fathom why my emotions were so deeply stirred. I argued that it wasn't solely her wedding day, it was equally mine, our day together, that she had unilaterally chosen to share with her sister. I insisted that a wedding should celebrate the love between a man and a woman, not serve as a stage for two sisters, leaving me feeling like an unwanted extra on my own celebration. We erupted into a colossal argument, perhaps the fiercest in our entire relationship, and in my anger, I blurted out that she should also bring her sisters on the honeymoon, for I had no desire to share our escape with them. She stubbornly refused to see my perspective, but somehow, after a few days, clarity dawned upon her, though I can't say what exactly shifted, and she chose to pull back a little from her sisters to focus on mending our marriage, which had begun on a rocky note. Ironically, it was Jeremy and Vivian who texted me immediately after the wedding, checking in to see if I was okay. In his message, Jeremy even extended an apology on Stacy's behalf and kindly offered to take me out as a gesture of peace. Truly, he is a good guy. I chose to let bygones be bygones, and things improved thereafter, yet I remained quietly simmering with resentment toward Stacy for her actions. It may sound petty coming from a middle-aged man, but I had been biding my time, awaiting the perfect chance to exact my revenge. A few weeks back, after taking a half-day from work, I was unwinding at a quaint, secluded cafe with a group of friends. Amid our chatter, I noticed Stacy entering with a mysterious man. Considering that this cafe is at the very edge of town, a spot rarely visited by someone like her, her appearance struck me as oddly out of place. I hesitated to approach, fearing she might intrude and dominate our conversation, so I stayed quiet, hoping she wouldn't notice me, and continued to relax with my friends. Stacy and the man lingered together for a considerable while, their playful touches and shared giggles unmistakably suggesting that their connection went far beyond mere friendship. I felt like an unwanted voyeur as I secretly observed them, unable to tear my eyes away. Shortly after my friends and I departed the cafe, I noticed Stacy and her companion trailing behind. I witnessed them sharing a kiss, and every dark suspicion of mine was unequivocally confirmed. Afterward, Stacy and the man departed in separate vehicles, and I resolved to tail him, determined to uncover his address and true identity. I realized I had to bring Stacy's deceit into the light, but only if I gathered irrefutable evidence, for she is as cunning as a fox, ready to exploit even the tiniest loophole and reverse the narrative. Thus, I embarked on a careful investigation. Over the following week, I diligently gathered information and uncovered his whereabouts, as well as his identity and background. This man turned out to be Nathan, 39 years old, who had been college batchmates with Stacy. Apparently, he harbored a massive crush on her, though she never returned his affections in that manner. After reconnecting a few years ago, it seemed their clandestine liaison had been simmering ever since. I was utterly disgusted. I couldn't quite believe it, or perhaps I refused to, but regardless, I knew I had to expose her deceit. Initially, I was tempted to share my findings with Amanda, but considering how inseparably she and Stacy are joined at the hip, I dreaded that my revelation might either be met with disbelief or spark an immediate confrontation between the sisters, neither of which would advance my goal. Thus, I resolved to carefully plot my next move. I discovered that Stacy and Nathan were regulars at the same cafe, meeting at the same time twice weekly. I even bribed the barista to divulge all she knew, revealing that every Thursday and Monday evening, Nathan and Stacy would stroll in, occasionally heading to a nearby hotel, though not always. Interestingly, these were the very evenings when Jeremy had to work overtime to earn extra money for the family. Consequently, I paid the barista handsomely to involve her in my scheme. I instructed the barista to set up a few contests at the cafe, such as a kissing booth where winners would share a kiss, knowing full well that Stacy would eagerly join in. We fixed a date, and I secretly contacted several family members, inviting them out for a special treat on Thursday, the day earmarked for the contest and the planned exposé. Stacy flatly declined, citing other commitments, yet the rest of the family agreed to join. I kept our destination a secret from Amanda, merely promising a surprise outing, and informed Jeremy that it would be an adults-only affair, assuring him I'd arrange and cover the cost for a babysitter. The plan was in full swing, and I maintained constant contact with the barista, who confirmed that she had informed both Stacy and Nathan about the contest, with both expressing keen excitement to participate. Everything was proceeding smoothly. Now, all that remained was to catch them red-handed before confronting them. Yesterday was D-Day, and events unfolded even more spectacularly than I had dared to imagine. The contest was scheduled to commence around 5:30 p.m., with the barista, Mira, estimating that the final round of the kissing booth would kick off by 6:30. I synchronized my timing perfectly, and along with Amanda, Jeremy, my in-laws, and myself, we piled into 2 cars and headed straight to that very cafe. I noticed Amanda's growing distress and inquired if everything was all right. She assured me it was, though an inexplicable tension clung to her. I dismissed my concerns, burdened as I was, and then touched base with Mira, who confirmed that we were right on schedule, with the kissing booth event about to kick off any moment. After we stepped inside, Stacy and Nathan immediately launched into a scandalous display, their passionate makeout session unfolding for everyone to see, a ghastly spectacle that left Jeremy rooted in defeat while my father-in-law and mother-in-law fumed in silent outrage. I tried to mask my disbelief as I asked in a low, trembling voice, "Is that really Stacy?" Amanda mumbled a reluctant yes, sealing our collective horror. In an absurd twist, Stacy and Nathan clinched victory in that ridiculous contest, and as if to add insult to injury, Mira, the barista, stepped forward to announce the winners with a theatrical speech. She raved about how this couple was the cafe's most regular duo, confessing in her heart of hearts that they were destined to win, even revealing that they'd been coming every Monday and Thursday for the past year. In the midst of this debacle, Stacy's eyes met ours, and I saw her face blanch to an ashen white as she caught sight of our entire family. At that moment, she was utterly done for. There was nothing left for her to do, and that was precisely what I had wanted. She scrambled over, stuttering apologies and insisting it had all been a mistake, but Jeremy simply turned away, and I rushed to comfort him as he teetered on the brink of tears. I felt profound sorrow for him enduring such a gut-wrenching revelation, yet I knew that any lesser exposure would have allowed Stacy to twist her way out of it. The evening unraveled quickly. Before long, the gathering was abruptly cut short. Jeremy stormed off in his car, and when I returned to the cafe, I found Stacy, Amanda, and my in-laws embroiled in a shouting match. Stacy was livid with Amanda for failing to warn her of our arrival, while my in-laws hurled accusations at Amanda for supposedly knowing about Stacy's infidelity with Jeremy and keeping silent. I was utterly stunned. Could it be that my own wife would condone cheating? In that instant, every ounce of respect I had for her evaporated. I pleaded with everyone to avoid further spectacle and insisted we leave for home. From that point on, Amanda and I barely exchanged a word. I could no longer bear the sight of her after what had transpired. As far as I know, my in-laws have taken refuge with Jeremy, who has since thrown Stacy out, and the kids, blissfully unaware, have been sent to stay with Vivian for a few days. The family lay in ruins, and while a part of me feels guilty for my role, I know that Stacy is the true culprit. Her betrayal set in motion a chain of events that threatened to shatter us all. 2 days later, fresh from the fallout of Stacy's exposed affair, I learned that Amanda had known, or perhaps even played a part, in the deceit. Since then, our interactions have dwindled to terse, obligatory exchanges. I find myself lost for words, and the mere sight of my wife now fills me with disgust. Strangely, she seems to be riding a self-important high, avoiding any real conversation with me. When I returned from work today, she announced she needed to talk. I hoped she'd confess everything about the affair, but instead, her words struck me like poison. She revealed that Jeremy had flatly refused to take Stacy back, and that, since the kids were with Vivian, Stacy had initially pleaded with her own parents for shelter, only to be met with a resounding no. My in-laws, staunch in their conservative values, hold marriage, family, and fidelity as sacred, and they have categorically severed ties with Stacy. This, she explained, was why Amanda had inquired if I'd be willing to let Stacy stay with us until Jeremy cooled down. That moment shattered any remaining control I had. I told her, incredulously, that she must be kidding. There was no way I'd ever allow a cheater under my roof, especially given how broken Jeremy was. I insisted that Jeremy had every right to expel Stacy, his spirit bruised and his heart shattered, and that her sister needed to accept the consequences of her actions. Then Amanda erupted, screaming that I was wrong to judge Stacy, claiming that Stacy had filled her head with lies, that Jeremy was abusive, and that this Nathan guy had been her rock, the one who helped her stand on her feet and ignited their illicit romance. I dismissed it as nothing more than a load of fabrications. We both knew that if Stacy were truly a victim of abuse and had been honest with the family, they would have rallied around her without hesitation. I warned Amanda that if, before all of us, Stacy admitted to being abused, I would let her stay in my house as long as she wanted. At that, Amanda's eyes lit up, and she rushed to call Stacy. But Stacy refused, flat out, to confront the issue, declaring she wouldn't air her dirty laundry in public, insisting that Amanda owed her that much as her sister. For the first time, Amanda pressed, demanding to know if the abuse claims were real, but Stacy remained silent before finally breaking down and confessing that she had lied, fabricating the abuse so someone in the family would know while she cavorted with Nathan. In that moment, Amanda was left speechless. I, though, felt a grim satisfaction as I watched her trust disintegrate. She abruptly ended the call, clutched me in a tearful embrace, and since then, she has refused any further contact with Stacy, even barring her from our home. My heart aches for my wife, yet I know deep down that this storm was inevitable. Everyone now sees exactly who Stacy is. Update 2. In the days that followed, Stacy bombarded us with desperate calls for help and advice. Nathan, tired of her incessant pleas, dumped her after she tearfully begged him to take her in, claiming she had nowhere else to go. Unsurprisingly, the entire family turned its back on her. Nathan made it clear that what they had was nothing more than a fleeting fling. He never intended for it to deepen, and urged her to focus on rebuilding her trust with her own husband instead of chasing him. In short, Stacy's fate was sealed. Her parents have cut off communication, and Amanda can barely stand to see her face. The children, who had been staying with Vivian, are now back with Jeremy. Late one night, a desperate Stacy appeared at Vivian's door, begging for help. Vivian, left with no choice, reluctantly let her in but made it crystal clear that Stacy must leave at first light. There was simply no room for a cheater under her roof. True to form, the next morning, Stacy locked herself in her room, refusing to come out, declaring that she had nowhere to go and would rather rot away than face the day. The entire ordeal was a maddening headache, and soon Jeremy had to be called in. Somehow, a fragile truce was reached, allowing Stacy to stay temporarily in Jeremy's house despite the children's curious inquiries. Yet Jeremy has resolutely begun divorce proceedings. In a heart-wrenching plea, Stacy cried and begged Jeremy to forgive her, suggesting couples counseling and therapy, but he remained unyielding. He reminded her that she had chosen to betray him, despite his constant respect for her wishes and his tireless efforts to provide for their family, and now she must bear the consequences. With no income of her own, it's evident that the children will primarily remain with Jeremy after the divorce. It's a grim scenario for Stacy, yet no one's sympathetic. Her parents have entirely disowned her, claiming their hearts are not as vast as Jeremy's, and vowing never to have anything more to do with her. Even her sisters are furious. She's lost every scrap of support, and in a cruel twist, the only person still standing by her side is the very husband she so brazenly betrayed. Update 3. Now, Stacy has managed to land a job and moved out. She couldn't bear living with the crushing guilt under the same roof as Jeremy. Amanda remained shattered, having drastically minimized contact with her own family, realizing that much of her life was dictated by their controlling influence. She started therapy, unearthing deep-seated issues and, remarkably, becoming more assertive, taking a stand for herself, especially in family matters, which fills me with pride. In other news, Vivian is set to be married in 3 months, and notably, Stacy has not been invited. Jeremy and the kids, of course, received invitations, leaving Stacy bitterly resentful. She had clung to the hope that the family would eventually rally around her, but she's now been completely exiled, the final blow being the omission from Vivian's wedding guest list. In a desperate bid for sympathy, Stacy posted an elaborate woe is me rant on social media, only to have it mercilessly shut down by my mother-in-law, who warned that airing dirty laundry in public would leave Stacy friendless online. That ultimatum silenced her. The children now see her only on weekends, and for their sake, Jeremy is keeping things civil, adjusting to his new routine. Every Saturday, Jeremy, Vivian's fiancée Raza, and I escape for a boys' night out, trying, albeit unsuccessfully so far, to set him up with women, yet his confidence is gradually returning. In the end, it seems that while life is slowly mending for everyone else, Stacy remains in the ruin she's created, and, in my eyes, she deserves every bit of it.